Welcome to day 5 of the International Great Black Read Aloud Day 2024. My name is LD Robinson, and I am excited to be with you again today. Thank you so much for tuning in. And this is day 5. It is our adventure day, and we have a great read for you. As always, we think our reads are great. And we're excited about what we are doing, which is we're giving voice to words written by Black people all around the world. And so we are continually providing examples of works written across all genres by Black people in various countries around the world. And we're excited about this venture that we have been on for the past 4 years. Tonight we have a our adventure read. And so one of the things I want to say is that this is previously recorded in the middle of the day, simply because it works better that way, but we are airing it here at night. So that's a little difference. We always want to make sure people understand whether we are actually live. While I will actually be watching the broadcast, I won't be broadcasting. And so, just want to give that little disclaimer. At this point, though, we want to make sure that we invite you to subscribe to our website, which is greatblackreadaloudday.org. And if you haven't already, go there, click subscribe, join our mailing list, and stay abreast of all the things that we will be doing throughout the year because we will be reading aloud throughout the year. We want you to follow us online as well at Black Read Aloud. That's our handle on all of social media. And additionally, we want to remind you that we believe that literacy is a legacy, which is the slogan of our partner in literacy, and that is the Fresh Book Festival. And the Fresh Book Festival is coming up here soon, February 22nd through the 24th in Daytona Beach, Florida. The first day is a film festival, and the next 2 days are the book festival. And we want to invite you to get your tickets online at freshbookfestivals.net. You can also find them online at FreshBookFest. Go ahead, follow their pages, keep up with all the news, look at all the authors that are coming in. It's going to be a wonderful time in Daytona Beach, and we're excited about it. And we want you to be there and partake of all the workshops. If you're thinking about becoming a writer, this is an excellent place to get your juices going because you literally will see books of all types there. You will see authors from all around, and it's a wonderful place to ignite your passion or put fire under it if you need it. Well, we are going to get right to our read today, which is our adventure. It's day 5, Adventure Day. And our selection for today is Sisters in Arms, a novel of the daring Black women in World War II by Kaia Anderson. And I'm going to go ahead and put up our cover as we always do. Again, our title for today is Sisters in Arms by Alderson. I'm sorry, Kaia Alderson. And it is a book about women serving in, excuse me, in World War II. So we're going to get right to our read. Let's read. And I'm holding on to my voice this year. I I declare it. I decree it. I am holding on to my voice this year. Right. So, and that means I have to do the things that I know I need to do to keep my voice going too. All right, we're reading from chapter 22, Somewhere on the Atlantic Ocean, February 1945. A week ago, Grace had been so eager to get on this boat. Now she wanted nothing more than to get off of it. Their days at sea consisted of going to the mess hall 3 times a day, drilling on the ship's top deck with the winter ocean winds whipping around them, and looking to see who didn't show up for drill practice because they were seasick that day. On any given day, about a third of their unit was out of commission. Grace had been ill herself for a day or two initially. Luckily, she adjusted to the constant rolling waves better than most. That had been her only excitement on the trip, outside the confrontation between Eliza and that insubordinate army private that first night on board. She and Eliza were still playing the awkward dance of not speaking to each other. Well, outside of what was necessary when you lived in cramped quarters together. Now it was the end of another day. Grace was getting ready for bed. Her rolled blanket had fallen off at the foot of her bed and down to the floor a few feet below. Again? Grace sighed and climbed down the rope ladder in her socks. She would be so glad when they were on dry land again and things would stay put because the floor wasn't rolling back and forth. Come on, Eliza. Grace had once again stumbled over the handles of Eliza's duffel bag, which had been stuffed haphazardly under the bottom bunk where Eliza slept. How hard is it to keep your things tidy? You've been living like this long enough to know better. Grace couldn't believe that they both had been in the WAC for so long. That's the Women's Army Corps. Some days she had a hard time remembering what civilian life had been like for her. Sorry. Eliza picked up the offending bag and threw it on her bed. Had you told me you were coming down from your bunk before you climbed down, I would have moved it out of your way. Grace did her best not to roll her eyes. Eliza must have caught a glimpse of that struggle because she pursed her lips and asked, Is there something you like to say? Nothing that wouldn't cause an unnecessary argument. Eliza crossed her arms over her chest. Try me. Fine, I will. Grace took a deep breath. Here we go. I didn't give you a heads up that I was coming down because the response would have been another round of heavy sighs and sucked teeth. I'm damned if I do and damned if I don't. That's not true. It is true. I've been getting an attitude from you whenever I open my mouth. Honestly, I'm getting tired of it. I really wish you would just let me have it. Say what's on your mind. Eliza opened her mouth but never had a chance to respond. The ship's siren blared, making everybody jump. Before they could get over the shock, the ship lunged to the right. Everything that wasn't bolted down went flying. Everything, including Grace. Her shoulder hit the wall hard. She yelped, but she was just one voice in a chorus of screams and yells, not just in their stateroom, but from all the quarters along the hallway. The lights flickered, then went out altogether. Then the ship lunged again, this time to the left. What the hell is going on? The ongoing siren drowned out Grace's question. She pushed herself to her feet and grabbed onto the nearest bedpost. As the lights flickered on, she saw that Eliza had done the same. The ship jerked violently once more. It was zigzagging back and forth at regular intervals now. Had the captain or whoever was at the helm gotten drunk? Something, maybe an engine, roared outside over the ship. That sounded like an airplane, someone yelled in the distance. Is it one of ours? Are we under attack? Someone else sobbed. There had to have been an explosion somewhere nearby because the ship pitched violently and then creaked. Thankfully, it remained upright, but the zigzagging continued. Oh God, are we being bombed? Grace wondered out loud. Oh no, Eliza whimpered. Bombs can only mean the Germans are here. Grace's heart went still because she knew somehow, she just knew that there was no way Eliza was wrong. A German submarine was lurking out there and it was looking to blow them out of the water. Suddenly, it became clear why Mama cut Grace off completely once she left for boot camp. Mama's gut reactions were seldom wrong. She had known somehow that the army was going to get her last surviving child killed. Oh, Mama, I'm so sorry. I never gave a thought about how this would affect you. Grace closed her eyes. A chill settled deep in her bones. She began to shiver. Grace had no idea how long the Germans chased them. The lights blinked on and off. A lump had formed in Grace's throat. Despite the crash of items being thrown around her and the whimpering of other women nearby, all Grace could hear was her heartbeat and the rush of blood against her eardrums. Was this how it had been for Tony in the end? Did he know the moment death had come for him? Or had it made him suffer, alone in the dark, before it stole his life? Every muscle in Grace's body froze, waiting for the inevitable explosion of fire, water, and metal to snatch her away. Only heaven knew if her final moment would be engulfed in a ball of heat or pressed down by the weight of the ocean as she sunk to her watery grave. As officers, it was Grace and Eliza's responsibility to keep the troops under their command calm. However, they were barely keeping it together themselves. Grace could feel her anxiety flaring. Grace could feel her anxiety flaring as the sirens blared on, and with no indication from the crew of letting up or even giving some kind of update. Normally, tapping her fingers in a soothing rhythm, no matter how tense the situation, would calm her some, if not all the way down. but there had been no opportunity to do so with the boat jerking back and forth. The siren stopped finally. Grace let herself enjoy one full second of relief before she forced her head back into the game. Come on. She grabbed Eliza by the arm. We have to check on the others. Eliza didn't move. Grace didn't have time to waste, so she left her friend behind. When she reached the enlisted women's quarters, Grace's eyes darted around to assess everyone's condition. One girl was grabbing up a handful of hair rollers that had fallen to the floor. Beside her, another private, Mary Bankston, if Grace recalled correctly, appeared to have stumbled to her knees, but was in the process of pushing herself back onto her feet. Grace reached out to help Mary up. Are you all right? I will be. Mary held her arm and made circles with her wrist. Satisfied that it was still in working order, she nodded. Luckily, I don't have to type anything in the near future. Another private, Lydia Thornton, had her arm around a woman, whispering what sounded like a prayer in Spanish. No temere mal alguno, porque tú estarás conmigo. Grace remembered when Lydia had first arrived at Fort Des Moines as a newly enlisted recruit. The young woman barely spoke English. She had come from way down in southern Arizona, right on the Mexican border, the product of a union between a Negro soldier stationed at nearby Fort Huachuca and a woman of Mexican American origins. Lydia could understand the English spoken to her for the most part, but speaking it herself to others had been a challenge. Both officers and trainees alike had rallied around her to help her get her language skills up to speed. Grace sighed with relief that the enlisted woman seemed to have survived the ordeal in one piece. But once she made it back to her quarters, she realized that Eliza, on the other hand, was in bad shape. Whether or not they were still friends anymore, Grace had been around Eliza enough in the last 2.5 years to know that the woman's armor had cracked. Grace could not recall a time when she had ever seen Eliza not smiling or rallying back with her determined chin leading the way and her eyes with a don't mess with me squint to them. But now Grace was at a loss. The change had happened in what seemed to be the blink of an eye. Grace found Eliza curled on the floor in the fetal position, with her hands covering her head. Her eyes were shut tight to the point of straining. She was shaking. But what really struck the fear of God in Grace was that Eliza's mouth hung open like she was screaming, but there was no sound. Grace rushed over to her. Now, standing over her, Grace could hear that Eliza was making a sound, a low, screeching moan, similar to the dying dog she had come across with her cousins the one summer she had gone to visit her mother's relatives down in South Carolina. We will, excuse me, her mother's relatives down in South Carolina. The boat cut hard to the right. Eliza yelped from the jolt. They weren't out of danger yet, it appeared. Grace, who had stumbled but had managed to catch herself before falling on her face, got on her hands and knees and crawled toward her fellow officer. Eliza was moaning again, the same word over and over. No. Grace reached out hesitantly, gently pressing her fingertips into Eliza's shoulder. Hey, are you hurt? Eliza responded with the windmill like fury of her arms. No, 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 no. All Grace could do was cover her face with her forearms as she slid herself just out of Eliza's reach. Hey, I'm a friendly. It's okay. We're okay. Well, they were okay for now. But Grace wasn't going to be the one to remind anyone they were still in very real danger of being blown out of existence. No, Eliza moaned again. By this time, the woman's arms had gone back to protecting herself, cradling her sides and the rib cage Grace knew to have been broken when Eliza had been attacked in that train station. The attack Grace had been helpless to stop from happening. No, the attack that had been her fault. That was why Eliza had been such a weight to her in recent weeks, wasn't it? Guilt ate at her insides, just as it had when Grace had arrived in Washington, D.C., and found out the extent of Eliza's injuries, just as it had when she had reached out to Eliza by letter and telephone and received no response. Grace took a deep breath. Back then, she had been unable to help this woman who, despite everything, would call her friend, but she was in a position to do so now. She reached out again, wrapping her arm around Eliza's shoulders. Shh, Grace soothed. It's okay. We're going to be okay. For all she knew, they might die tonight. If that was what fate had in store for them, then they would spend their last moments together as friends, whether Eliza liked it or not. No, it's not okay, Eliza whimpered. He beat me. I couldn't do anything about it then, and I can't do anything about it now. Yes, we can, Grace countered. As long as we have breath, we can pray. And if those Germans board this ship, we'll be ready. How? They wouldn't give us guns, wouldn't even train us on them. Eliza snorted. Grace noted that the tension in Eliza's arms had slackened and that she had begun to let herself lean against Grace. We will fight with whatever we can get our hands on then. This ship is loaded to the brim with munitions. They might not have taught us how to use those guns, but we'll figure it out if need be. Eliza leaned back and stared at Grace. Why are you here anyway, helping me? Because you need it. What's your angle? You don't help anybody unless something's in it for you. Like I said, because you need it. You've never gone out of your way to help me before. You let him. You let me walk right into an ambush. Grace stilled. That's not true. It was late. I didn't mean to fall back asleep. As soon as I realized that you were in danger, I tried to get you help. We all tried. The ship jerked again. Eliza yelped. Grace tightened her grip around the woman's shoulders. The hold she had on her in turn comforted Grace. What matters is that I'm here for you now. I won't leave you now. I know you think I abandoned you in Kentucky. Yes, I messed up. But I did try to make it right. I got the porters to go on the radio for help. We did our best. I screwed up. I am so sorry. So, so sorry. In my head, I know that there was nothing you could have done that night, but I've seen how you can be persistent and clever when you want to. So I can't make those two facts jibe in my head to make it okay. I understand. The ship jerked again before Grace could say more. Both of the women tensed. Grace held her breath, bracing herself for whatever happened next, but neither made a sound this time. It was funny how the two of them kept finding themselves thrown together, in this case, literally, when army life as a colored woman got tough. Another moment passed, and then another, but the ship seemed to be staying its course. What in the world could be happening out there? I know how I come off, but I like to think that when the moment requires it, I'll always do the right thing. At least, I try to anyway. Grace paused a beat. When I'm not too busy being a coward, she finished. Being a coward might have its place. Eliza pushed herself into a sitting position. She sniffed, then wiped her nose on the back of her sleeve. Grace raised an eyebrow. That wasn't very ladylike. Whoever said my aim was to be a lady? All those fancy clothes you like to wear, most of which I had to ship back home while I was packing up for this deployment. They said we could only bring one civilian outfit with us. Besides, my mother bought most of that stuff. The fancy stuff, I mean. If I had my way, I'd live in Chuck Taylors and dungarees. I can't see them letting you cover society events for your family's newspaper like that. I never wanted the society beat. That was my father's doing. I've always wanted to cover sports. Baseball, that's my dream. So now Eliza was telling Grace her deepest dream that she feared would never come true. Grace knew then that hell must have frozen over, or more accurately, that hell was literally chasing them down to the ends of the earth. Whoa, I never would have thought baseball. Yeah, I loved the game all my life. Really? Yeah, even played a little. I was recruited to play for an all girls traveling softball league once. My father threw a fit. You didn't stage a walk out like you did to join the WAC? Eliza chuckled. No, but only because he locked me in my room. He what? I'm surprised he didn't try that again when you told him you got in the WAC. Only because I planned ahead. I had my bag stashed in the front hall closet. I left in the middle of a formal dinner with our neighbors, right in the middle of the dessert course. Let me guess, he was too much of a good host to run out after you? Something like that. Wow, that's some story, Grace paused. So, what are you going to do when the war is over and you go back to the States? I'm not sure, but I have thought of going for something more dramatic, like showing up to the newspaper's office unannounced and banging out some baseball coverage on a typewriter. Yeah, I can see you doing that. Grace's gut reaction when she had first laid eyes on Eliza at the induction center had been right. The woman was fearless. She had more gumption than Grace had in her little toe. Grace remembered having some of that fearlessness about herself when she was younger, back when she was still performing recitals and practicing piano under Mama's strict tutelage. Grace had been terrified right before each and every time she had to go on stage to perform. But once she was seated at the piano bench, she felt like she owned the world. Until the one day when sitting there instead made her feel like the world owned her, and it had crushed her without a second thought. I wish I could be that brave. You are when you want to be. No, I made the thing I wanted most. I had it at my fingertips once, but when I got it right in my grasp, I froze and messed it up. What's that? Juilliard. I used to play piano. I was really good, good enough to be invited to audition, but I messed it up. The plan was to study at the best music school in Manhattan and then become a world famous concert pianist. That was Mama's dream for me to grace some French stage someday. I went along with it because I figured it was the only way to get me out of my mama's house. But I never told her the truth. But my brother knew. He was my biggest cheerleader. Tony sensed that I had no desire to play only the classical stuff. So he turned me on to the hipper stuff. But he's dead now. The Philippines. I'm so sorry, Grace. Grace shrugged it off, not wanting to discuss Tony any further. What I really want to do is compose. There. She had finally shared with another person her dream of composing. This was the first time Grace had admitted that aloud. Of course, it would be when her own fate was uncertain. So that's why I always find you scribbling on sheet music when you think no one is looking. Guilty as charged, but I still wouldn't mind going to Paris. Well, if the Germans don't blow us out of the water, you might just get your chance. Eliza smiled. It was the first time that Grace could recall Eliza genuinely smiling at her since they had come aboard. Grace exhaled. The release of air caused her shoulders to drop, like they had just released the weight of a load she had been carrying for far too long. It felt good to have finally shared her actual dream with someone. Jonathan had tried to pry it out of her, but she hadn't been ready to accept it for herself yet. But now, under her own terms, it felt right. It was her dream. Not Mama's, not Jonathan's, not Eliza's, something that she wanted for herself. Why did she need someone else to believe on her behalf for her to see it through to fruition? Why did she need someone else's approval to walk into a Juilliard audition with the confidence to knock it out of the park? She had performed on the Carnegie Hall stage by herself when she was 13 years old. Grace's arm dropped from around Eliza's shoulders. She had a sudden urge to run away, far away from this ship, the Germans lurking outside, her life in the WAC. Run back to the fool she had been at that audition when Mr. Hutchison asked her if performing was what she really wanted to do. He must have sensed her true desire to compose when she stumbled over the musical selections as written, preferring to improvise her way through the pieces instead. She decided that whenever she returned to New York, she would go back and request, no, demand, one more opportunity to show him what she could do on a piano, to have the confidence to declare her true aspiration, becoming a composer. To him, to show him who she really was inside. Now that her life was on the line, she was ready to take all the risk for her former self. Excuse me. Now that her life was on the line, she was ready to take all the risk her former self had been too scared to breach. Thanks. I haven't had anyone believe in me in a long while. And thank you for looking after me tonight. My body healed from that attack long ago, but my mind, well, Let's just say I'm still working on that. And thanks for not laughing at my dream. Girls like me aren't supposed to want to be sports reporters. The truth was, Grace had never actually hated Eliza. She had hated herself. Grace wiped her eyes with the back of her sleeve and sniffed. No more. The ridiculous war with Eliza that she had concocted in her head was over. Does this mean we might finally become friends now? I think so. Good. Then I hope we get off this boat and through the rest of the war in one piece so you can make that happen, Eliza. Eliza leaned back to get a better look at Grace. Make what happen? To see you become a sports reporter and spite your daddy. Eliza laughed a little, but it soon trailed off. Yeah, that would be something. The ship had kept a steady course for a while now. The beat of bootsteps and yelling in the hallway had gone silent. Eliza pushed herself to her feet, wiping off her bottom. She reached out her hand to Grace. When Grace took it, she helped her to her feet. But most of all, I wish you peace. Eliza studied her for a moment. Thank you. I wish the same for you. Grace had no idea how much time had passed before they heard the all clear. She flexed her fingers. A whoosh of relief escaped her lungs when she felt them wrinkle at her sides. She was still here. She was still whole. This has been from our selection today, Sisters in Arms, a novel of the daring Black women who served during World War II by Kaia Alderson, our author. And I apologize because I forgot to put her name up there. But her name is Kaia Alderson. And so I will go ahead and put up the cover again right here so that you can see it. And this has been Sisters in Arms, our day 5 adventure book, which I tell you, it starts off very interesting. So worth a read for sure. Well, we want to remind you that we are reading every day this month. We have 29 days lined up and we want you to join us. You can pick a day and read along, pick a topic, a genre of literature, and we ask that you read along with us. You can record your video, upload it, tag us at TIGBRAD 2024 or the International Great Black Read Aloud Day, and we will gladly put your selection on our website where you can find all things related to TIGBRAD. Our reading list is there, and so when we are done, we will put up a cover of today's selection, which has been Sisters in Arms by Kaia Alderson, and it is the story of daring women in World War II, those who first joined the Women's Army Corps. And this is a story of two Black women who get to the WAC in a couple different ways, but they have an adventure of a lifetime. And so it is based on true events. And we are excited about reading aloud here at Tig Brad. And again, if you haven't subscribed to our website, go ahead and do so. If you haven't subscribed to our YouTube channel, go ahead and do so. And we look forward to joining you tomorrow on day 6, which I'm going to put back up, which is contemporary. And I knew that because our selection for tomorrow will be from a favorite writer from the US. But I think this will be a great read. And so we look forward to it. And we look forward to you, and we thank you for joining us again. And we look forward to having you here tomorrow on the International Great Black Read Aloud Day 2024 edition here on here online. We will see you tomorrow and have a great night, everybody.